Hey everyone. Thought I would try something a little bit different here and talk to you directly. I don't do this sort of thing very often, but if you've seen this channel before, you've probably noticed that there's quite a range of different things that I've posted here before. So I figured I'd take a moment to talk about what this channel actually is and where it's going. So what's this Deadstick Aerospace thing? And what is this channel and what is it for? If you're already a channel subscriber, then you've probably already been here because of content that I've made for things like Kerbal Space Program, Elite Dangerous, or perhaps Star Citizen. However, it goes back a lot further than that. Back in the early 1990s, I had been programming for fun and experimented with creating small DOS-based shareware games. I would upload those to game-sharing bulletin board systems, and if I was extremely lucky, I might get some actual feedback from players. Once I started to become somewhat satisfied with what I had done there and the level of polish and quality that I had created, that I decided that I kind of needed a brand. I needed some sort of trade name, something that I could use to identify my projects and that would be recognizable. And I needed to come up with a name that was unique and something unlikely to already be in use. I thought back to the old days of my online and tabletop gaming, things that I was interested in, such as Dungeons and Dragons and my love of Halloween. And I thought about how could I combine these things into a concept that I could use as a sort of brand for my shareware games. And so what I came up with was something that did combine those ideas, and it was taking the names of skeletal undead things, and I came up with a name that was just simply known as NecroBones. This name was never really meant to be an entire online persona. It was more of a banner that I would use just for my shareware projects and for my gaming content. And that name persisted for quite some time, and to some degree I still use it. But for those of you who may remember, back in the day there was a game called Star Siege Tribes. These games were team-based first-person shooters with jetpacks, which was a lot of fun. And for a time, I ran a popular server for Tribes 2 called NecroBones T2. Now, this server had some of the best ping times to the East Coast here in the United States, simply because I ran it under my desk at work, where we were right on the backbone for the Eastern Coast. But during this time, I was also making some custom maps for the game, some of which became popular in the Tribes 2 community, and I also started to get a little bit of a reputation going for flying the Shrike, which was a vehicle that was actually quite difficult to master, even if the basics were not too hard to pick up. This was one of the rare times in my gaming career in which I truly got good at something rather than just being passable or just a typical casual gamer. However, back then, I wasn't recording video and certainly didn't have a place to share it, even if I did. Before I started making a point of recording any sort of themed gameplay, I experimented with other things, such as making some Star Wars parody lightsaber videos. I tried a variety of ideas that I could easily make around the house, and called it the Everyday Dark Lord, showing examples of using a lightsaber for all sorts of common everyday tasks, from anywhere from fixing a computer to cleaning a toilet. However, the first real game that might have brought you here, and that you might recognize the NecroBones name from, is when I started making rocket parts for Kerbal Space Program. I made several parts mods, some with some of the more well-known ones being Space Y, which is a play on Elon Musk's SpaceX, and I made one called Real Scale Boosters, which attempted to replicate real-world rockets and the lifting boosters that were used in actual space programs throughout history. And of course I made the very infamous burger mod, which I have to admit was eventually featured in a Scott Manley video, and that was actually kind of the point of creating it, was trying to come up with something silly enough and fun enough that might get onto his radar and get a little bit of internet fame that way. And that did actually work. In Elite Dangerous, I got involved in the exploration community, taking advantage of the game's full-scale Milky Way galaxy, and when I discovered that there was crowdsourced data available, I decided that I would create a database and generate some maps and visualizations, which became the ED Astro website. So, since my in-game name was Commander Orvidius, this channel also rebranded itself as Orvidius NecroBones, trying to combine the names that I had for a period of time. And since then, I've gotten more involved in Star Citizen and also the Microsoft flight simulators. And in both instances, I've enjoyed playing as crazy, reckless pilots, and I enjoy doing all sorts of stunts and crazy shenanigans that you might not want to try in real life. I also grew up with a pilot in the family and was already a space and aviation fan from an early age, so this was a rather natural progression. For some examples, in the flight simulators, I've had a great deal of fun flying aerobatics really badly, probably very badly at times. However, I like to dart under bridges, go screaming down the streets of New York City, cutting hard turns between buildings, executing rolls and stall turns right next to skyscrapers, and making low passes over the nation's capital and landing on the White House lawn, because who doesn't want to do that? In Star Citizen, I'll fly low and fast, skimming the tops of hills and mountains, and occasionally blacking out while doing so. Between these things, all these absurd flying antics, I decided I wanted to rebrand this channel around some of that. But I also wanted to pay homage to the channel's roots too. I wanted an aviation theme that also retained the undead, spooky Halloween roots. And so I realized that I could do this by using some existing aviation slang. And a skeletal pilot logo, and the first version of which was AI generated, but I've already attempted to recreate it in Star Citizen and may come up with some better ideas later. The term Deadstick in aviation refers to flying after the engine is quit, and you're steering the aircraft without power. Branding this as if it's an aerospace company just made me chuckle in the right kind of way. And so here's the description that I decided to post for the channel. It says, "Fly fast and debrief like a cautionary tale. We've never met a g-loc maneuver or an inverted short final that we didn't like. We're coming in hot, and go-arounds are for sissies. Stay reckless, my friends." For the non-aviators here, g-loc refers to g-force-induced loss of consciousness, and the phrase inverted short final means that you're lined up with the runway, getting ready to land less than half a mile out, and coming in upside down. So will this name stick, and will it last? Or will I rebrand again in the future? Who knows? And that's part of the fun. I can let my gaming take me wherever the fun goes, and I hope you enjoy some of the zany things that I share here as well. And if that's for you, I hope you'll like and subscribe and stick around, and I hope to see you in the verse. Thanks for watching.